Hey, it's Ronin Man. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to the channel because there's going to be a lot more good stuff where this first one came from. So today we're going to talk about how to become the best MGTOW that you can be and basically the phases of becoming a MGTOW. The reason why I say that is because it's very important. I think a lot of people, when they realize, personal change, right? When they realize that things are not the way they thought they were, there's a tendency to shut down. There's a tendency to go rogue, basically, and not to kind of assume that none of the rules apply. Like, hey, I was screwed over, and so now like all bets are off, right? It's like the guy in the movie who just Rambo. He's out there, just taking people out, and he doesn't care, right? And I understand the feeling. Don't get me wrong. There ain't nothing wrong with that feeling. In fact, that fantasy is fine, but I think to really make personal change, you really need to go through, I guess, the necessary phases, and you have to set yourself up for success, right? One of the biggest problems is when you becoming a MGTOW, really what we're talking about is throwing away all the ideas you had about relationships until now in the garbage can and changing yourself so that you can live basically totally separate from most society's expectations of you. I mean, if you think that's easy, if you think it's as simple as just taking a pill, there's the red pill, right? You just take that pill and then all of a sudden it's all clear to you, like in the Matrix. I mean, you're totally out of your mind. I think that taking the red pill in the sense of accepting, starting to see beyond, beyond the curtain and see what's really going on in life is a really important step. And it can be the beginning of an escalator ride that just takes you, and so in that sense, there is some truth to it. But at the same time, to really grow and also to be as successful as you want to be in life, it takes personal growth. You got to change, man. You got to change. It ain't just about figuring out the girls, figuring out what they want and what they're doing and distancing yourself from them, because for me, this is not the kind of life I want to live. I want to be very successful. A little bit about myself. I've had many businesses in my life. I moved to Asia in 1989, originally from the States, but I've lived out here since the 80s. And I've had, I would say I'm a natural pickup artist. So I've had, I don't know exactly, but somewhere between 600 and 900 girlfriends. And all this stuff that I've done has really shaped my thinking. And I've been a MGTOW since 1992. And I'll describe that all in this first podcast so you guys can really hear what I'm talking about and where it all came from. And it was actually before the MGTOW movement officially started. So if my story doesn't fit exactly with the, with the script that everybody's following right now, bear with me and listen, because we were out there doing it in the beginning and trying to figure out what to do, how to do this thing, My awakening really started like I said, in 1992. I was living in Tokyo, and I was, young man. I was excited. Japan was a great place for me. I got a job. I was teaching English. Everything was great. My students were great. They were mostly girls. I was sleeping with most of my students, maybe 50 of my students, and I was just out picking up girls all the time. And really like every kind of fantasy that I ever had about sex, or anything from threesomes to just any place outdoors or any particular act. It's like that was the period of my life when I was able to fulfill anything I wanted pretty much on a daily basis. So I didn't have at the time, like a lot of MGTOWs have anger, like, oh my gosh, this is happening to me, I can't believe it, all the girls are terrible, that wasn't how I felt. And I totally respect people that have that experience. So, I hope this is valuable for both sides. So this is just my honest story. Okay, so 1992, I'm dating all these girls, and I'm still basically, looking back, I'm basically a nice guy, like in the sense that it was very hard for me to tell the girls no, or to be, I was a contradiction for the girls. And I think they saw me as an easy target. but actually I wasn't at the time because I had so many girlfriends. So, for example, one would come over, and then I would in a sense I'd kind of fall in love with her, and then I would be like, oh, I want to, I'd be having a great time with her the day, we had sex and did this and that, and whatever we did, go to Disneyland, and then I had another one coming over. So say 9 o'clock, there was another one coming. So no matter how much a good time I was having, I had to get rid of the one I was with, because the other one's coming over, and so there's nothing I could do. So I would have to like do something. It was uncomfortable for me. I like women. I really enjoyed them and enjoyed everything about them. Really, I mean, I wasn't I didn't look down on women that I slept with. I still am friends with many of the girls that I my ex-girlfriends or whatever, one night stands or whatever. And so it wasn't like that, but it was like, this was the beginning of MGTOW, because I had to get rid of girls. Otherwise, I couldn't let the other one come over. So that was like not easy for me, actually. It was hard. I was like because I'd be thinking, oh, this one's nice. The other one's coming over. So it's like, okay, I got to get rid of this one, period. No matter what, I got to get rid of her, right? And then, I'd do something and would go to the station or whatever. So I pretend like I'm going somewhere else, or I would go somewhere else temporarily, and then the other one would come over, and then I would meet her, and then the other one would come over in the morning, so I had to get rid of her. And it was like that. And that was like super hard on me. And it taught me that I could say no. I mean, I think in a sense, even though I had all these girls, I really was kind of like, my life was kind of revolving around them, and again, it wasn't bad. I mean, it was a great time. It was a wonderful time. And, but here I am learning, right? So I'm sitting there, and a guy moves into town, and he was also into picking up girls, and we hit it off right away. And, he said to me, once he got to see my lifestyle, because I was keeping this very hidden. Like, I mean, of course, I got fired at work for sleeping with all the students, but a lot of it I was keeping hidden because I didn't want, I don't know, I was ashamed, I guess, It didn't fit with what I thought I was supposed to do with my life. Grew up in a conservative family. My family is very conservative. Parents married very young, never divorced. My brother never divorced. My sister never divorced. Nobody's divorced. And nobody was a playboy ever, if you consider this a playboy. And so, of course, I didn't totally cover it up, but I mean, I was ashamed, I guess, I was ashamed of what I was doing. I thought it was wrong, I think, at the time. But so this guy comes into town, and he basically said to me, he looked at my life and he said, you got to get hard, man. I mean, like, you got to get hard, man. You got to treat them like sluts and this and that. And, you have to, treat them like dirt and blah, blah, blah. And he was basically a total asshole. And I was like, why? Like, why do you have to do that? Like, and he's like, well, so you can have a lot of girls or whatever. And I was like, I don't understand that, but that didn't make sense to me. But either way, he was also in the same mode as I was, as far as, meeting girls, and I could be open with him about what I was doing. So I was hanging out with him, and he gave me a couple of books that changed my life. And the one book was called The Predatory Female, and I'll put this in the link below. The Predatory Female is a book written under a pseudonym, Reverend Shannon, and it is, you can read it down below. The PDF is there, and also support the book and buy it from Amazon. But that book, it was very different than me, right? Because I really recommend reading The Predatory Female, because this was probably the first MGTOW book, I think, ever written. I think that was really MGTOW there, the beginning of MGTOW. Although it was so different from my experience, because he was all talking about being married and like how bad it was and getting divorced and how she screwed him over and how like girls are just all liars and this and that. And what that book did for me, although I could obviously see he was very resentful, and I was not resentful, is that it made me realize that women didn't always have my best interest in mind, I think before that, I kind of looked at women like reverential in a way. So it was like, women are great, I'm so lucky to have all these women. They're so awesome. This one's this one's that. And then when I read that book, it was like the first time I haven't ever thought about the dark side of women. And I read another book at the same time, which was also given to me by the same guy. And the book was the Manipulated Man by Esther Villar. And I read that book, both that and The Predatory Female, hundreds of times. I mean, I read them so many times I wore out both books and had to get new ones because this is paper. This is before the internet, right? And it was very difficult to get those books back then. The Predatory Female actually was not difficult. It was The Manipulated Man was very difficult because women hated that book, and whenever it would be in a library, it would be stolen, actually, by the original feminists. They were stealing the books from the library, and then they wouldn't, get a new copy. So they were getting the book out of the library. So it was like really hard to get a hold of that book. I finally found it at a little used bookstore when I was on vacation back home. And when I did, immediately, because my other one just like literally you couldn't even read the pages. I had read them so many times and folded them so many times. It was just like totally falling apart. So I got this other one and I copied it. It was a Xerox machine. And I made a bunch of copies and I started handing out to friends. And The Predatory Female and The Manipulated Man, both are very different books. Both are imperfect books. But I think both very, very important books because they were really breaking ground. Even if I don't agree with all the ideas in them, like The Manipulated Man, I mean, as much as I love the book even today, I went back and started to read it the other day because I saw on somebody's MGTOW channel they had The Manipulated Man, and I saw the interview with Esther Villar in German. You can see online, or I can put that link below. And she's very anti-women, and like I said, the guy who gave me these books is very anti-women. And at the same time as I benefited so greatly from these books, I never was anti-women. I never bought into that part of it. So it's hard to say what I got from it, but I got a lot. I can say that. These books changed my life because I could see that for the first time, like I said, women didn't have my best interest in mind. Maybe they wanted to marry me for whatever purpose they had. But it wasn't necessarily like, hey, I want Paul to have a great life. It was like, I want. And it's not that big. It's not that shocking when you think about it. I mean, it's not. But it's still, for me at the time, I was like, I just kind of assumed, really at the time, I thought women were just angels. I swear. I just thought they were angels. I thought they were great, I loved them all. And I still have kind of part of that in me today. But at the same time, I'm much more realistic now. And if I tell you all the horror stories I had, you'd probably think, how could the guy be so positive about women after all those things happened? But I just, it's the way I am. I just still love women. I think they're great. I just spent the morning talking to a friend of mine. She's 59 years old. She's got divorced, and she's having a hard time. And I have, a great social life. And what scares me when I hear about guys getting into MGTOW is I hear about people really trying to, retreat into themselves. And cutting off their family and being very angry, and I don't think that's necessary. I don't think it might be necessary as a stage. It might be an important stage. If you look at Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she wrote the acceptance of death, I think, or something like that, and she talked about the 5 stages of death, and the first is denial, like, oh, they're not dead, and then it's like the different stages in grief and all these different stages, and I think that becoming a MGTOW is very, very much like that. I think when we say take the red pill, what we mean is open your eyes, man. Like, just open your frickin' eyes to the real world, It's like, it's not some fantasy land. Like, things are not necessarily stacked in your favor. They're stacked against you in many ways, No matter how many girls you have, no matter how many you don't have, it's the same deal. It's the same world. There's a system set up ever since time immemorial to milk guys for all their money and to create, families and have the children supported by the guy. And it all rests on our shoulders. And we kind of fall into this thing no matter what we do. I mean, these are everywhere we look, right? We look online, we look in a movie, we look in a book, whatever. It's always going to be those same messages. So here's what I talk about. I think my phases of MGTOW. One is obviously the red pill realization. Girls are not for your best interests, and I think along comes with that was that your mom wasn't in for your dad's best interests, and that the sexes have different goals that contradict. And I think when I realized and I thought of it, I realized I had been played the fool by a couple of girls, and that creates resentment. Realizing that the deck is stacked against you. So I mean, the media teaches you every movie you've ever seen, every book. They're never from a MGTOW perspective. They're always from a societal perspective, right? So companies pay you a certain way. They give you, insurance for the family. They, like if companies were set up to support single guys, they would pay differently, right? But it's set up to be a family. And the other thing is like music and even architecture. Every house. There's one thing drives me insane is like, I'll never be married, and when I look at every house, when I look at houses, they're always designed for people that are married. It's just the way they are. They have the bedroom, they have the children's room, they have the living room with the big table. They don't have like the type of place that I always want, which is more like a Japanese love hotel, where it's built for pleasure. It's built for a single guy and the things he wants to do. My ultimate house is more like a combination of a Japanese love hotel and a German restaurant kitchen, where you can really cook. I love to cook. I love good food, and a nice kitchen is like super important to me. So everything is designed with our enslavement or our servitude, our support in mind. So that when you realize that, you think, well, shit, what's going on, right? And the first thing you think is you're angry. It's like, what the hell, You think back and you think of all the things that happened to you. You start to think of your brother, what situation he's in, and your friends are in, what they've gone through. You might have like incredible anger at one girl for one situation in your life that happened. Maybe you were divorced. Maybe she, took your money. Maybe she lied. Maybe she stole money. Maybe a number of things happened. Maybe she had a side guy, and that can really burn, that can really hurt, especially if you've given your all to the girl. So anger is the next step, right? And this can last for years. And I know a lot of MGTOWs are very angry, especially young guys. And I think it's a necessary phase. This is real life out here. It's hardball. We're playing hardball. So I'm not saying any feelings that you have are not legitimate. They're all legitimate. And I've gone through all of these things myself. So this is the second phase, is anger. The next one is confusion, right? So, okay, so now you realize that it's not in your favor. What should you do? What is the path? What are the options, right? And I think this is really one of the toughest ones. And this is what MGTOWs in general are doing for guys, is they're giving direction. They're saying, hey, okay, you realize this. Yeah, it's true for you, right? So what are you going to do about it? Here's what I did. Here's what I think. Here's my experience. This is invaluable information for anybody who is just realizing the same thing. So special shout out to Diana Davidson, Sandman, MGTOW 101, MGTOW Expat, and all the guys that are kind of carrying the torch in the community and made those videos that are really waking a lot of guys up. So this is where you get the confusion. Step 3 is when you start to really study what is MGTOW and what have other guys learned, right? What gems of wisdom are out there and what options are out there, so that I don't have to make tons of mistakes myself, right? Like you look at family culture and you see friends and society and everything kind of against you. Like, what do you do, right? What do you do? So that's basically, I think the next phase obviously is to listen to everybody and to read as much as you can, even from unusual sources. I personally think that the pickup industry, I'm friends with a lot of top pickup artists, and like I said, I'm a natural myself, and I've done that a lot. I'm not doing it right now, actually. At this age, I'm not really that interested in going out and picking up girls, but I have the lessons that I learned were invaluable, and I think I think that the personal growth that a pickup artist goes through when he pushes himself through these phases is like really in line with MGTOW, because it's a basically a pickup artist, a PUA or a MGTOW are guys who are really realizing that what society tells them to do, what the track is for them, doesn't work. It doesn't fit. And I think there's probably a lot of secret guys who are MGTOWs who actually studied quite a bit of PUA stuff and got a lot of benefit. And the thing about both movements is that it's really out of the box, and it's guys only, right? It's guys only helping guys and trying to figure this stuff out that's called life, right? And how to make life the best you can. At this stage in my life, I am completely MGTOW. You know, I started going my own way back, like I said, back in '92, and my own way was not the same as everybody else's own way. Okay, my own way was having plenty of girlfriends, but not being beholden to any of them. So they could all leave, and I'd be like, okay, cool, you know, no problem, you know, great. So just let's think about what we want to do, right? Sometimes in my stage right now, I actually think that dating girls is kind of a waste of time for me at this, and I might change in another whatever period of time. I might change, but right now I'm so focused on, you know, my business and my what I'm doing right now, and creating this new channel, and trying to think of everything that I can bring to the table with my experience, because I have a lot more experience than a lot of people do online. You know, I have a lot of experience. So feel free to ask questions below. Send me any questions, any kind of topics that you think that you want my take on, because every topic can be looked at different ways. So there's no one end all be all of any topic, right? It's like an elephant, right? And the blind guy is feeling the elephant. One feels the trunk, one feels the leg. You know, we're all trying to figure this thing out. We're all trying to figure it out. So I'm happy to give my take on any topic that you like. So put it in the comment box below. And I appreciate you. I really appreciate you supporting the channel, and getting a subscribe, telling the other MGTOWs about it. And I'd love to either interview different guys, and really, like, what I do when I'm making a video, or when I'm doing an interview, or when I'm just even meeting anybody, having any kind of discussion, is I consider it a chance to learn new things. So I don't think of it like life is not a debate for me. A debate is when you're trying to win your point. You're trying to be right. I'm never trying to be right. What I'm always trying to do is I'm trying to always take what I gather in the day, okay, whether it's in a conversation, and put it through my truth filter of everything I've learned, and then to realize a new conclusion, right? So it's not like, oh, I'm going to teach them what I think. It's more like the way you ask the question and the way you phrase it. It's actually telling me something, right? It's teaching me something. It's about how you feel and how you think, right? So, and then I hope I can mix my thinking with that, and then come out with something new, and keep improving and improving and improving, because there is no end to self-improvement. You know, this MGTOW thing is not as simple as just taking the pill. There's so much to it. We're going to talk about in other videos about how not to be blackmailable. You know, I think one of the biggest problems with MGTOWs is you're putting yourself in a position where once people find out, you can be blackmailed, and you could lose your job, or you could have problems with whatever, and that would cause you to give in. I'm going to talk about how I have my life totally unblackmailable. You know, I'm not like the guy in the movie where they kidnap the guy's kids, and then he's like totally at their mercy. Like, there's nothing anybody can do short of kill me or my parents, pretty much, that, you know, would be like, oh, I'm just definitely going to give in to this, right? And that also, being unblackmailable, so maybe we'll do this in the next video, being unblackmailable, I mean financially, I mean socially, at the same time as having a great social network, because I think other people are the key to life. So to me, MGTOW is not hiding in my shell. It's about realizing something very true about the world, and it's about finding other smart guys who think the same way, and it's about creating something out of nothing, and creating a movement that is something that is cool, something that's great to be involved in, with new ideas. You know, not just rehashing the same old stuff, right? It's like, let's take this to the next level, and ourselves to the next level. And that's my goal with MGTOW. So this has been Ronin Man, and thank you very much for listening. And like I said, please hit that subscribe because it means a lot. And any comments also, because comments, YouTube takes those super seriously, because they look at that and they say, hey, you know what? People are listening to this channel. People are paying attention to this guy or this girl. And so thank you very much for listening.